Hello, everyone. I'll be talking about Chapter 12 in this kind of reference for our Class Ed 302 Assessment of Learning 1. And this one is all about essay assessment task. Although in some videos, I mentioned already about essay as part of the assessment of learning. But in here, I would like to mention also some of the things about the essay assessment task from the perspective of another author. Key concepts about the essay. So essay test items ask students to compose the responses and are scored with a judgment of the quality of those responses. Restricted response essay items limit both the content of students' answers and the form of their written responses. Extended response essay items require students to express their own ideas and to organize their answers. Good essay questions ask students to use the higher order thinking skills specified in their learning outcomes. Follow item writing guidelines to create high quality essay questions that assess subject matter learning. Second concept, score essays with rubrics or rating scales for summative graded assessment. Require all students to answer the same essay questions. Give feedback related to the intended learning outcomes. Definition of essay items. Essay test items ask students to compose the responses and are scored with a judgment of the quality of those responses. Restricted response essay items. Limit content of students' answers. Limit the form of their written responses. Easy for students to interpret. Focus on specific and well-defined performance. Scoring reliability and validity are high, especially if you have the analytic rubric or the holistic rubric or the rating scale in general. Extended response essay items require students to express their own ideas and to organize their answers. Used to assess general writing ability, used to assess subject matter knowledge. Useful when assessing learning objectives that involve multiple skills. Tend to have poor scoring reliability and thus lower validity. Usefulness of essay assessments. Allow assessment of higher order thinking skills. Motivate students to focus on broad learning concepts and interrelationships. Allow assessment of in-depth learning on a narrow topic. Encourage students and teachers to share criteria for evaluation. Guidelines for writing essay items. A quality essay item should, number one, assess an important aspect of the unit's instructional objectives or the one coming from the learning competencies as found in the curriculum guide. Match the assessment plan in regard to performance, emphasis, number of points. Require students to apply knowledge to a new or novel situation. Because if that one has been taken in class and you're going to give that one as part of the essay, then that would just be on a recall or remembering stage of the revised version of the cognitive domain. Contribute to covering the range of content and thinking skills specified in the assessment plan. Be focused with specific directions. A quality essay item should, number one, have a prompt that appropriately defines the text. Require more than recall of facts, definitions, list, ideas, or generalizations. Be worded in a way that leads all students to interpret the assignment in the intended way. A quality essay item should, number one, make clear to students all of the following: magnitude or length of the required writing, purpose for which they are writing, amount of time to be devoted to answering, basis on which answers will be evaluated. Second, Make clear that the student's assessment will be based on logic and evidence supporting their arguments rather than on the actual position taken or opinion stated. Essay items on a summative test perspective. For summative or a graded assessment, require all students to answer the same essay questions. That's in a class. If you give an essay, then all of them must take the same kind of essay items. But in terms of a differentiated instruction or differentiated assessment, then you can have also a variation on the kind of essay items that you are going to give. You might group your students according to the brightest ones, the above average, the below average, the average, and below. With those different classifications, you can actually design the kind of essay items that you are going to give from the brightest one to the one in the lower group of the entire class. Offering options make it very hard, if not impossible, to compare student achievement equitably. General suggestions for integrating writing assessment and instruction. Organize assessment and instruction around characteristics of good writing. Teach students what good writing is. Emphasize the process. Define standards or levels of achievement. Use rubrics and scoring guides. And here, we're going to look at again analytic rubric and holistic rubric, or the scoring guide or the rating scale. Craft writing prompts with rhetorical clues. So crafting writing prompts for narrative writing. And this is actually the reason why I have another kind of video for essay, because this part is actually very helpful to you future teachers in crafting different essay items with the writing prompts, in which these writing prompts could not be found also in some other assessment of learning materials or assessment of learning. So, number one, narrative, something that really happened. So we say narrative, you're going to narrate on something that really happened. Example, think of one happy thing that happened to you in the past. Maybe it was something that happened at home or at school or someplace else. Write an essay that tells what happened. Be sure to give specific details that explain why this was a happy thing, so your classmates understand your feelings. Second, imaginative. Imaginative writing prompts, something that did not or could not happen. So something that did not or could not happen. Suppose that one day you woke up and found that you were a fish. What would your life be like? What would happen to you? Write a story that we can put into our class magazine that tells what happens to you when you are a fish. Be sure to give specific details about what your life as a fish is like. Third, expository writing, an explanation with the details. So expository and explanation with the details. Animals change a lot when they grow. Think about one animal that you know a lot about. Write an essay that explains how this animal changes as it grows. Be sure to explain very carefully and clearly so that our classmates or your classmates reading your explanation can understand. Persuasive writing prompt. Persuasive writing prompt convince the reader of a point of view. So from the name persuasive, you're going to convince the reader of a point of view. Suppose students in this school had 13 minutes of free time each week. The school principal wants your suggestions about one thing students should do with this free time. What is the one thing you would suggest? Write an essay to the school principal that would convince the principal that he should use your idea. Explain why your idea about using the free time is the best possible and should be followed. Give reasons to support your position. Rubrics are useful for both instruction and assessment. Give students rubrics to help them conceptualize good work that serve as an instructional tool. Have students apply the rubrics to sample answers over a range of quality. Have students assess their own writing based on the rubrics. General suggestions for scoring essay test items. Use a scoring guide. It might be analytic rubric, holistic rubric, or the scoring guide in general, the rating scale in general. Sometimes the criteria for grading. Score questions one at a time. Score subject matter correctness separately from other factors. Spelling, language, use, neatness may not be part of the assessment plan, but in my case, it would be better to include that one so that the spelling skill is actually developed, the language use is actually developed, and the neatness of product, the neatness of output is actually developed within other skills not found in the competency. So, meaning the spelling, language use, neatness could be part as additional competencies aside from the major competencies that have to be learned, that have to be mastered at the end of the lesson. Score essays anonymously to avoid subjectivity. You're going to have that one because if you know the person, the owner of the paper, or the student's name on the paper, you might be subjective, and that's very normal for us. But as much as possible, you have to be objective. Give detailed feedback in a timely manner. If possible, use more than one reader. More than one reader so that you will have an objective rating. There might be a possibility that you are confused with what is being written on the answer and you yourself could not actually objectively rate that one. So maybe you can ask help from your other teachers, co-teachers to read the answer and give also inputs about the rating of that paper. Factors that affect scoring reliability, inconsistent standards. So if standards are not provided, then you would be inconsistent. So that's the reason why you're going to make use of analytic rubric, holistic rubric, or the criteria or the rating scale or the scoring guide. The rater drift. Make sure you're paying attention. You're paying attention on what is being focused in that essay. Changes in the topic and prompt. Use multiple assessments. The halo effect. Judge the work, not the student. Conceal the names. That's part of the halo effect. Judge the work, not the owner of the work, not the student. Conceal the names no, of the, the, the owner of the paper to avoid subjectivity. Carry over effects. Score one question at a time. Because there might be a case that item number one has been answered correctly, item number two has been answered correctly. Here comes item number three is not actually well written, and you might be carried out to give higher points because of what the student did in number one and number two, which are actually excellent or very good. That would somehow affect your scoring on the third paper. And we call it one as carryover effects. Or the opposite one, wherein number one, not a good answer. Number two, not a good answer. But number three is actually a very good answer because the students know all of those things to be written as answers of number three. But since you have already an idea for number one, number two, then you might be tempted not to give the best score or to have a perfect score according to the rubrics because of your knowledge with the answers of number one and number two. And still, we consider that one as part of the carryover effects. Changes in writing because of technology. Writing assessment may include multimedia components. Written assessments may include sharing options, no? Post a review, use a wiki, or any other integration of technology. Automated scoring systems are available for large scale applications. Automated scoring can reliably reproduce human scores. Advantages include efficiency, immediacy, and practicality. Disadvantages include the focus on product, reliance on English language, and lack of agreement on a good writing. All of those things that I mentioned are actually copyrighted by Person Product Education based in Singapore. And all of these things are copyrighted. So I have the permission for educational purposes. Should you like to have some comments or you're going to cite that, then you have to ask permission from person product education for ethical considerations to avoid plagiarism. Thank you very much.